I always believed that home was more than just a place. For me, it was a symbol of everything I'd fought for: freedom, security, and peace. After years of serving my country as a U.S. Army colonel, I finally found what I thought would be my sanctuary: a quiet house in a peaceful neighborhood. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine. It was supposed to be the start of something new, a fresh chapter after decades of sacrifice and service. But little did I know, this neighborhood had its own set of rules. Rules that weren't just written in the HOA handbook. They were unspoken, unwritten, and undeniably unfair. At first, it was small things letters about my lawn not being green enough, complaints about my flagpole being too tall. I brushed it off as nothing more than overzealous rule enforcement. After all, I'd dealt with far worse in my career, but looking back now, those were just the warning signs. You see, as a soldier, you're trained to recognize threats. You learn to trust your instincts when something doesn't feel right. And let me tell you, something didn't feel right about this place. I was deployed overseas when it happened, thousands of miles away from home, serving my country like I'd done for years. But while I was out there defending freedom, someone back here decided that my house, my home, wasn't worth defending. When I got back, everything was gone. My furniture, my belongings, my memories. All because someone decided that my home was abandoned property. And who made that decision? The HOA presidenta woman who thought she could play judge, jury, and executioner with something that didn't belong to her. They sold my house without my permission, without even notifying me properly. And when I confronted them about it, well, let's just say their excuses didn't hold up under scrutiny. This wasn't just about a house. This was about power, about control, and about how far some people are willing to go to take what doesn't belong to them. But before we get into it, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button for more stories like this one. You won't want to miss what happens next. I've spent my entire adult life serving this country. As a U.S. Army colonel, I've led missions in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. I faced challenges most people can't even imagine. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what I was about to face in this quiet suburban neighborhood. This house was supposed to be my reward, my sanctuary. After years of sacrifice, I finally had a place to call my own, a place where I could relax, unwind, and just be. But from the very beginning, something felt off. At first, I thought it was just me being overly cautious. After all, I'd spent years in environments where you had to constantly be on alert. Maybe I was reading too much into it, or so I thought. My life has always been about service to my country, service to my community, and I carried that same sense of duty into this neighborhood. But what I didn't realize was that this neighborhood had its own set of rules that didn't always apply equally to everyone. Homeowners, associations or HOAs were originally created to maintain property values and ensure neighborhoods were well kept. But over time, they become notorious for overstepping their boundaries, especially when it comes to targeting specific homeowners. In many cases, HOAs have unchecked power. They can issue fines, place liens on homes, and even foreclose on properties, all without much oversight. The HOA president, let's call her Karen, seemed friendly enough at first. She even came by to introduce herself when I first moved in, but it didn't take long for her true colors to show. Just a little reminder about our community standards. We like to keep things uniform around here. At first, it was small things, complaints about my lawn being too brown, notices about my flagpole being too tall. I brushed it off as nothing more than harmless nitpicking. But then, the letters started coming more frequently. I received the first fine notice, a $200 penalty for not trimming my hedges within HOA standards. I paid the fine without thinking much of it. After all, I wanted to be a good neighbor. But then came another fine, and another, and another. I started noticing other things too, like how repair requests I submitted were mysteriously ignored while other neighbors seemed to have no problem getting theirs approved. And then there were the letters, the ones I never even knew existed until much later. It's not uncommon for HOAs to claim they've sent notices when they haven't, or worse, intercept mail so homeowners don't even know there's an issue until it's too late. I later learned that Karen had intercepted several certified letters about supposed violations letters that would have given me a chance to address the issues before they escalated. By the time I realized what was happening, it was already too late. I had been counting down the days to come back home. After months of deployment, I was ready to return to the life I had built. But as I pulled into my driveway, something caught my eye, a for sale sign planted right in front of my house. My heart sank. I didn't understand what was happening. This was my home, the place I had worked so hard for, the place I thought would be waiting for me when I got back. I call a neighbor to ask what's going on, but they avoid eye contact and mumble something vague about the HOA. That's when I found out. While I was overseas serving my country, the HOA had decided that my house was abandoned property. They sold it at auction for just $3,200 because of what they claimed were unpaid dues. In Texas, HOAs have significant power when it comes to foreclosures. They don't need a court order. They can initiate what's called a non-judicial foreclosure if there's a power of sale clause in the deed restrictions. This means they can sell a home without ever stepping foot in a courtroom. In cases like this, and others, involving military personnel, there are supposed to be safeguards in place under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. But those safeguards are often ignored or exploited by HOAs looking to make a quick profit. It felt like a punch to the gut. I had been fighting for freedom overseas while someone here was taking away mine. I wasn't going to let this slide. This wasn't just about mate, it was about standing up for every soldier who's been taken advantage of by people like Karen. I walked into an HOA board meeting with a folder full of documents, my military orders, proof of payment for previous dues, and copies of federal laws protecting service members. I invoked the Service Members Civil Relief Act, a federal law designed to protect active duty military personnel from things like foreclosure while they're deployed. Karen, well, we didn't know you were on active duty. That's when I showed her the certified letters she claimed were sent letters that mysteriously never made it to me. And then there was this. It's clear from this analysis that these signatures were not made by the homeowner. This raises serious questions about how these foreclosure proceedings were initiated. The case went all the way to court. My attorney argued that the foreclosure violated both state law and federal protections under the SCRA. The judge reads through documents before looking directly at Karen. Not only did this HOA fail to follow proper procedures, but they also ignored federal laws designed to protect service members like Colonel Your Last Name. This foreclosure is null and void. Karen shifts uncomfortably in her seat as murmurs fill the courtroom. Karen's smirk faded quickly when the judge compared her actions to those of other HOAs that had faced public backlash for targeting military families. This wasn't just a victory for mate. It was a victory for every service member who has ever been exploited by systems that should be protecting them. The day the court ruled in my favor felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The judge voided the illegal sale of my home, fined the HOA $50,000 for violating federal laws, and banned Karen from ever serving on an HOA board again. Justice had been served. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for every service member who's ever been taken advantage of by these overreaching HOAs. This wasn't just about a house. It was about principle. OAs across the country are coming under fire for foreclosing on homes over minor dues, often targeting vulnerable groups like veterans and low-income families. In Texas alone, over 200 homes were foreclosed by HOAs last year. When I heard what happened to him, I couldn't believe it. But then I realized it could have been me. These HOAs have way too much power. Rebuilding my home wasn't just about repairing walls or replacing furniture. It was about reclaiming my life and my dignity. And I wasn't alone. The outpouring of support from my community was overwhelming. People I'd never even met came forward to help. It reminded me that while there are those who abuse power, there are also those who stand up for what's right. Senator Royce West. This case is a perfect example of why we need stricter oversight of homeowners associations. Too often, these organizations operate without accountability, and it's time for that to change. We're working on legislation to ensure that what happened here doesn't happen again. I'm not here today as a victim. I'm here as a fighter. And I want each of you to know that if you've ever felt powerless against an HOA or any other organization, you're not alone. This wasn't just about my home, it was about something much bigger. It was about standing up against injustice and holding those in power accountable. It was about every soldier who's ever come home to find their sacrifices disrespected. Every black family who's ever been targeted by systems designed to exclude them. I hope my story inspires others to fight back when they're wronged, because at the end of the day, this isn't just my story, it's our story. My fight isn't over not until every homeowner has the protections they deserve, and every service member can return home knowing their rights are safe. This fight is far from over. My story is just one of thousands. Across the country, homeowners are being targeted by HOAs that abuse their power, exploiting loopholes in the law to take what doesn't belong to them. It's time for us to stand together and demand change. If you've faced HOA abuser, know someone who has. Don't stay silent. Share your story. Use the hashtag HOA Justice to join the movement and make your voice heard. We can't let this continue. No one should have to go through what I went through, what so many others have gone through. Together, we can push for laws that hold HOAs accountable and protect homeowners from these abuses of power. But it starts with you. Contact your state representatives. Demand reform. And if you've been a victim of HOA overreach, don't be afraid to speak up. I've spent my life defending this nation, fighting for freedom, justice, and equality. But this fight was different. This wasn't about foreign enemies or distant battlefields. This was about protecting what I'd built right here at home. This isn't just my story, it's our story. It's about every service member who's ever come home to find their sacrifices disrespected. It's about every black family who's ever been targeted by systems designed to exclude them. And it's about every homeowner who's ever felt powerless against an HOA that was supposed to serve them, not exploit them. This fight isn't just about houses or property. It's about dignity, respect, and fairness. It's about ensuring that no one else has to go through what I went through. I defended this nation. Now I'm fighting for the right to call my house a home. To everyone who reached out after hearing my story, thank you. Your courage inspires me every day. Together, we can make sure no one else has to face this alone.